Meet the Master Thief, a title which really does explain everything. This build is all about becoming the perfect thief, sneaking silently through the night and stealing anything of value which isn't nailed down. The Master Thief is a Khajiit with the Anaquina origin. Playing as a Khajiit does mean we don't have a ton of overall hit points, but fortunately that's not too much of a problem for a super stealthy build like this one. We do also gain a bit of extra agility, which is good for fatigue, and the origin assures we don't lose any strength. Most of the starting skill boosts are at least somewhat helpful for a character like this, and having a night eye ability we can use whenever we want to is great for late night robberies while everyone else is sleeping. For a Birthsign, I went with the Thief sign. Not only is this incredibly thematic, but it also gives us a huge boost to attributes right at the start of the game, providing us with a 10-point increase to agility, luck, and speed. These are all solid attributes to have raised for this sort of a character, but having a 10-point boost to luck in particular is really cool, as you can only manually raise that stat once per level, and it costs 4 times as much as every other attribute for some reason. The major attributes for this build are strength and speed. While strength can often be seen as a stat more befitting big bulky barbarians, it manages to serve us incredibly well. The main reason we choose it is for the added carry weight it provides. Each point in strength equates to 5 points of carry capacity, which is why my Master Thief, who has a strength rating of 80, has 400 carry weight to work with, plenty to loot anything of value I come across without having to worry about how heavy it is. That alone is enough of a reason to make it a main attribute, but it also gives us a little bit of extra health and a boost to our unarmed damage, which is great for if we ever end up in a fight we can't avoid. The other major attribute is speed, and there's not much to say about it. It makes you move faster. Good for sneaking through corridors rapidly in order to avoid patrolling enemies, and also good for legging it if you do get discovered somewhere you're not supposed to be. The minor attributes I went with were personality, agility, and luck. Personality is the one of these I focus most on, as being a thief will have you interacting with NPCs pretty regularly, be it chatting with beggars to learn information, or haggling with fences to get the best price for your stolen goods. If people like you, then both information gathering and bartering will go a lot smoother, so it's certainly not a bad stat to level up. Agility, on the other hand, isn't actually anything that great for this character. It feels like it should fit in well, but with how I've built things, all it's really doing is giving us more fatigue to work with. Certainly not a wasted bonus, which is why you should feel fine putting points into it, but also not really one you should focus on either. Luck is the final attribute I want to talk about, mostly to tell you not to spend any level ups on it. I know this sounds weird, me both saying that this is an attribute you want to focus on and one you should also never increase when you level, but there's a good reason for that. Luck costs 4 virtues to raise by a single point in the level up menu, and you can only raise it a single point per level. For all the other attributes they work on a 1-to-1 ratio, and you can raise them as many as 5 times per level. But you can raise luck substantially when in the Imperial Sewers. By choosing the Thief sign and also choosing luck as a favoured attribute when creating a custom class, you can start the game proper with a 15-point boost to the luck stat, without it costing you more than raising any other attribute would. This means you still get to be a super lucky thief, but you don't have to wait till level 16 to reach that point. If you ever play a character with whom you want to have luck as an attribute, this is the way to do it. Raise it in the character creator, not during level ups. The major skills for this build are Sneak, Security, Speechcraft, Mercantile, Acrobatics, Alchemy, and Hand-to-Hand. Sneak is the quintessential skill of the build. You can honestly make this entire character work just fine with nothing but this skill. Remaining undetected is the most important thing for a thief, and the Sneak skill is all about that, making it harder for anyone to spot you while you're crouched down. This skill does also raise the odds of successfully pickpocketing, but this is still a Bethesda game, so you should always be quick saving before attempting that anyway. Next skill is Security, and this helps out when lockpicking. Oblivion's lockpicking minigame may be quite unforgiving, but at least it's still more reliable than pickpocketing. This will be a very useful skill in the early game, helping you to get into locked chests and doors, behind which is normally the best loot. Though once we level up enough, there will be an item which basically overrides the skill entirely. Speechcraft is the first of the 2 talking skills, and will help increase our disposition rating when chatting with NPCs. The higher your disposition, the more that person likes you, and the more information they'll be willing to part with. If you're trying to find something out from an NPC, then make sure to do the Persuasion Will minigame so that you have the best odds of getting what you're after. Mercantile is the second of the 2 talking skills and is much more straightforward. The higher the skill, the more money you make when bartering. If you want to sell your goods for the best prices, then you'll need this skill to be leveled up. Additionally, it will lower prices when buying, allowing you to actually spend all that gold you're racking up from robbing half of Cyrodiil. Acrobatics is the game's jumping skill, and this one is more thematic than anything. I wanted this character to be one who could maybe scale up a building to enter from a roof or easily leap over fences when fleeing from the guards. This skill would technically help you do both those things in game, though either scenario is not that likely to actually come up. Alchemy is our penultimate skill, and this one is all about crafting potions. I decided I didn't want to go with any magic at all with this character, so being able to craft a variety of potions makes up for the lack of spells. By combining together alchemy ingredients in a mortar and pestle, you can make a wide variety of beneficial potions. From fairly basic ones like those which restore health or fatigue, to more nuanced ones that can provide water breathing or detect life. There's a potion for every situation, and experienced players can really step the build up a notch with this skill. And finally we have Hand to Hand, which is our only combat skill. This is something I very much did intentionally, as I had an earlier iteration of a build with both Blade and Marksman, but it became much more of a combat focused bandit rather than a stealth focused thief. By disregarding the weapon-based skills, we get a very different feeling character. One who doesn't have any interest in combat, but can still handle themselves if a fight is entirely unavoidable. The hand-to-hand skill will allow you to drain fatigue from your enemies when you hit them, draining them of the will to fight. And once you reach Journeyman in the skill, your power attacks come with a chance to disarm, allowing you to knock the blade out of a bandit's hand, pick it up off the ground, and run off to sell it while giggling the whole time. On that note, not having to dedicate a huge amount of carry weight to your weapons and repair hammers to fix them just means that you have more room for looting stolen goods. When it comes to equipment for this build, I decided to eschew weapons and armour entirely. I've already talked about the weapons thing in the previous section, but when it comes to armour, it just isn't needed for this sort of a character. You could go with some leather armour for a look that still fits in with a thief while providing some protection, but you're only really getting 4 or 5 points of damage resistance from that, and it's eating up your carry weight. Needs to be repaired, and makes you look less like an everyday civilian. By instead going with clothing, you can be lighter on your feet, look less suspicious, and not have to worry about ever repairing anything. Ideally, you would want some enchanted clothing items to give you buffs to your skills and attributes, but I didn't find anything all that useful which I liked, so instead went for fashion. Specifically, I was wearing a dark shirt, black wide pants, and wrist irons. The black clothing makes me feel like I blend into the shadows a little more, while the wrist irons are a reminder that this character is still a criminal. Most important of all this though, is that you need to make sure to not wear anything on your feet. Oblivion determines how stealthy you are not just based on the sneak skill, but also on your footwear. The heavier it is, the more likely you are to be heard. By going barefoot, you're giving yourself the best chance to remain undetected. While our basic apparel is rather basic, there are 2 incredibly important artifacts for us to get our hands on, which will give a major boost to the overall effectiveness of the build. The first is the Ring of Akajite. This is an incredibly valuable ring which provides both the Chameleon and Fortify Speed effect. What this means is that you put it on and you become invisible and move faster. The Chameleon effect is only 35%, so it's not impossible for people to notice that you're there, but it's still more than enough to let you pass by the casual observer. The other item is the Skeleton Key. This is an unbreakable lockpick which renders the whole lockpicking minigame trivial. With it, you can simply spam the auto-attempt button until the lock springs open. Both of these items are Daedric artifacts for Meridia and Nocturnal respectively, and will require you to be at least level 10 to acquire. Once you reach that level, head to each of these ladies' shrines to get their quest started. The faction you want to focus on with this build will of course be the Thieves Guild. The entire goal of a character is to work his way up their ranks and become the greatest thief in the land. I'd highly recommend starting their faction questline right away by making the Imperial City waterfront pretty much the first destination after breaking out of prison. Once you've found out how to join them and been accepted into their ranks, you'll not only have started the overall questline, but also gain access to a fence who can buy your stolen goods. At this point, I would recommend just going out on the rob. You need to fence a certain value of stolen goods in order to unlock each proper Thieves Guild quest, so there's no real reason not to do this right away, getting your practice in with more freeform sandbox stealing before the game puts you on a more direct path. This should also give you some time to level up enough in order to work your way up to level 10, and get a hold of the special items which will make the questline much easier. This character is a thief through and through. The gameplay loop really is just to head somewhere that might have valuables, wait until everyone is asleep or otherwise distracted, and then sneak around and steal whatever you want to get your paws on. I designed this character as an almost non-combat build. I didn't want to make it so that it was impossible for you to win a fight, but I did want to deter combat where possible. For the most part, your focus should be on avoiding conflict, sneaking past enemies, and staying out of harm's way. But there will come times when a fight is inevitable, and for this there's a couple of things to keep in mind. First is that hand-to-hand can be quite powerful when in a one-on-one battle with warriors. Once you're able to knock the weapons out of their hands, you'll find things become pretty easy, as you either pick up the weapon off the ground and stop them from being able to hurt you so much, or you allow them to pick up the weapon and punch them a bunch while they're distracted. You won't have such an easy time while at range or when outnumbered, but here you can use stealth to wait for the right time or get close to the enemy before you're spotted. If need be, then the Eye of Fear power you get from being a Khajiit will allow you to demoralise an enemy once per day, making them run in fear from you. Very helpful for thinning out the herd, or delaying a fight until things are more in your favour. Overall though, this build is really all about playing Oblivion as a stealth game, and focusing on the Thieves Guild questline. I'd recommend you really lean into the role-playing of it all to get the most out of the experience. I myself decided that I would only equip my magic ring when I was specifically trying to steal items, and I make sure to put it on when out of eyesight of everyone, ducking around behind corners and turning invisible so as to not arouse suspicion. Sure, you can just wear it all the time, be permanently invisible, and things will mechanically work out the same. But this added little routine before every theft really helped me to sink into the character a little more. And by having the ring hotkeyed, it only ever took me a moment to put the ring on or take it off, so it's not like it even really slowed me down or anything. Finding ways like this to play more into the character can create a much more enriching playthrough, and if you want to get even more inspiration for where you can take the role-playing of the character, why not stick around for their backstory? The Master Thief grew up in the Stitches, a small town tucked away in the canyons of Anaquina. It was a settlement in which law and order held very little weight, with most of the inhabitants being criminals of one kind or another. The young Khajiit was primarily raised by a group of thieves, who not only taught him their craft, but also a communal mindset. While the lone thief is typically only concerned with personal gain, when it is a group all working together, they have to think about how everyone can work as a unit, and ensure that they all get what they need out of a job. This mentality extended towards their marks as well. You can rob a rich man for hundreds of gold and he would barely notice the difference a month later, but rob a poor man of a single coin and he might not make it to the end of the week. As such, the group mostly targeted rich merchants from out of town, those who were normally just passing through, heading up towards the imperial cities to sell the goods from down south. These tended to be easy targets and ones who would keep coming back. Losing a bag of gold to a band of thieves was apparently much cheaper than finding a different route through the canyons, and no doubt much safer too. The thieves never killed anyone, but the surrounding fauna sure did. For a time, the young thief was incredibly happy. Not only did he have a place and a purpose, but it was doing something he seemed naturally skilled at. His quick reflexes, small size and charming smile made him a great fit for so many jobs. He was more than content to spend his entire life in the Stitches, surrounded by loved ones and with enough to ensure they could all stay healthy and well fed. But change always comes, and in this case it was from a roaming band of lawbringers. This group claimed to be spreading law and order throughout the lands, and had overheard merchants talking about the thefts that regularly took place in this town. The lawbringers had taken it upon themselves to venture here and crack down on all forms of crime they found, and considering their heavy armour and powerful weapons, it seemed unlikely they were planning a diplomatic solution. The group of thieves tried to lay low for a while, but they had no great coffers of gold to live off of. Typically they only stole relatively small amounts at a time, enough of them to get by, but not enough to maintain them indefinitely. It only took a couple of weeks for them to run out of what they did have left, and then there was no choice but to risk a job while the lawbringers were still around. Fortunately, there were still plenty of caravans passing through, and the plan was routine enough. Stop a caravan while they were out on the winding roads, get the driver to hand over what gold they can carry, and remove one of the wheels so that the driver has to reaffix it rather than chase them down. It was a simple plan, but an effective one, and it went off without a hitch. On the journey back, the Khajiit even thought that maybe the lawbringers wouldn't be a problem after all, but as they walked back to town, this proved to be entirely false. The lawbringers were waiting for them, blocking the roads and with weapons at the ready. The woman at the head of a group of thieves cautiously approached and tried to be friendly to the enforcers, not letting on what they'd been doing, and clearly hoping to convince them the group had simply been out for a walk. This charade clearly fell on deaf ears, as rather than uttering a single word of a reply, the armour-clad figure she was speaking to lifted up their great hammer and brought it down with terrifying speed, destroying the head of the thief in a single strike. With this, the group panicked and fled back the way they came. They weren't fighters, and hardly had more than a couple of daggers between them. There was no choice but to run, and on this at least they had the advantage, not being slowed down by bulky armour or life-ruining weaponry. The remainder of the group may have been able to make their escape, but the fact they had lost a member in such a way made it clear that things could not carry on. They would have to disband and all move away, leaving behind their home for who knows how long. The Khajiit decided to head to Cyrodiil. It wasn't too far to the north of where they were, and hopefully would provide a rich picking ground for a thief of his talents. It was with great sadness that he left his family behind, but they would all be safer off alone for now. His journey north was not an easy one, but after weeks of hard travel, he made it past the border and into Imperial lands. It may not feel like home, but at least he can make something of himself while he was here. That was the plan at least, but it was while travelling between cities that a pair of guards approached him and claimed he had violated the law. He certainly had plans to, but hadn't even been in the province long enough to get started. As he tried to talk his way out of the situation, it soon became clear why this had happened. Apparently not all the Lawbringers had stayed put, and one had travelled north, warning the Imperial guards to be on the lookout for each of the thieves and to arrest them on sight. Any hope he had of escape drained from Mukajit's soul, and he accepted his fate. At least being thrown into prison was better than death, and maybe one day he could find a way to escape and be free once more. If you enjoyed this character build, then please do like and subscribe. It lets me know that you want more videos like these and helps them to keep being made. If you want to go a step further to help these videos get made, then you can always become a patron or a channel member. Feel free to comment below with other builds you'd like to see in the future, and as always, thanks for watching. Sarge out.